Hey, elite educators and purposeful parents. I am coming to you with another video. I am outside today of my condo complex. I decided to give y'all a spring view. It's the weather is changing and it's a little chilly out, but it's bearable. So I wanted to film outside today. Today I wanted to talk about 10 things I wish I knew before I went into education, before I became a teacher. And I have a list that I'm going to be talking from. So let's get started. I am Kimberly Deneen with Education Noire, where we help you level up your practice for student growth and achievement. So, today, again, we're talking about 10 things I wish I knew before I started teaching. Number one, I'm dealing with allergies, so bear with me. The first thing I wish I knew before I started teaching was the value and importance of building relationships with my students. I built relationships with my students, but I wasn't purposeful about it. I um I learned how to be more purposeful about building relationships with experience. Wish this was something I knew before I started teaching, because when teachers have a strong relationship with their students, they tend to have less discipline problems. They tend to have less classroom issues. So I have learned to be more intentional about building relationships with my students. I have been trained on social emotional learning and restorative justice practices, and I incorporate those every day in class through Circle. So with Circle, what I do is we always greet each other. We shout each other out. Shout outs are a time for celebrating one another for something, whatever the case may be. When they win a football game, they get a shout out. The team members would get a shout out for that. If they got inducted into the National Honor Society, they would get a shout out for that. Um, if they stayed back for office hours to get extra help, then they might get a shout out for that. If they came to school and they hadn't been coming, maybe they get a shout out for that. But it's not just me shouting out the students, but they shout each other out, and they may even shout me out. So that's a part of Circle. The other part of Circle would be a share question. Those share questions help build relationships. Like, they really help me get to know my students way deeper than what I have ever experienced in the past without having done Circle and these shares. This week, I found out that two different students had dealt with homelessness in their past from the share question. I would have never known that if that question hadn't come up, and they didn't trust me enough, right, to answer it truthfully. And I was just really honored that they felt safe enough in my classroom to share something so personal. So, yeah, so that's the number one thing that I wish I knew before I started teaching. Number two would be how to manage stress. So I did a video on about teaching and nursing. These are, according to studies and statistics, these are the two most stressful professions out of all professions. And it is true, because we get as an educator, I'm getting stress from many different areas. I'm getting stressed because I want my students to do well. I'm getting stressed because I need to do well for when my principal observes me, so that's stressful. And there are high stakes test teachers. I'm not this year. I'm not a high stakes test subject, but that's a stress for teachers. Depending on where you live, they may have a different name for them. In Virginia, it's the Standards of Learning Test, the SOL tests. Here in Maryland and in Washington, D.C., it's the PARC tests. These tests, not, for PARC, these tests really are a measure of what the teacher has done in the classroom, not necessarily what the student has done, but what the teacher has done, right? So that's a stressor. Dealing with student behavior is stressful. Understanding and knowing about situations that may have transpired with the student's family is stressful. I know I've not had to do it many times, but I've had to call Child Protective Services and report things. These things are stressful. Um, dealing dealing with the parents can be stressful. It's just so many stressors, right? So I wish I knew better how to manage my stress before I went into education. I know now how to better handle my stress, but I think that it took me some time to get here. I'm 20 plus years now in education, and I wish that we would have, when I started teaching, focus more, on mental health and self-care and all these things. But now these things are very popular. I don't want to say popular. We just understand more. We understand more now that mental health is important, right? When I started teaching, there was no emphasis on mental health, self-care practices, and overall emotional wellness. There was no focus on that when I started teaching in the mid 90s. um, but now there is a focus on it. It's a strong focus on it for teachers and for students. So I wish that I understood the importance of self-care before I started teaching. I have a whole video on self care for teachers. So hopefully, I'll be able to figure out how to put that, so you can see the video up here. Hopefully, that will work. Number four is the value of student input, right? I think educational programs didn't really talk about that so much when I started. Before I started teaching, it was not really a thing. There are now they have something called empathy interviews, where before you start a unit, or before you even start writing a unit, you actually interview students about these things, and get their input. um, I ask my students, how did you enjoy this lesson? Do you like learning about this? Did you like this activity? I get their input on a regular basis, because guess what? They're the expert. They are the ones who know how they learn best, and they are the ones who really can guide us. So I ask them now all the time about, how do you think the lesson went? Do you think, what could we do better? What could I have done better? How do you learn best with this particular subject, or with this particular type of lesson? So I wish I knew the value of student input before I went into education. And then number five, understanding that there is always another chance to get it right. So I've had plenty of lessons that have truly bombed. I've had units that weren't maybe weren't a high interest for my students. So uh, there's always the next time, the next day, or the next unit to get it right, to do better. And I think that when my lessons didn't go well when I first started teaching, I internalized that as, oh, I must not be a good teacher. I must not be, I internalized it as me, as me and what I'm doing. Not, I didn't really think of it as like, okay, well, let me just try it another way. Okay, well, I just internalized it as, oh, I must not be that great of a teacher. So no, it's not that. It's never that. So It's always another chance to tweak a lesson. It's always another chance to um, add something, take away something, figure out what works after you've gotten input from your students. Um, there's always another chance to get a lesson right. Number six, having honest conversations with students. It could be a conversation after a lesson that bombed. What could I have done better? Tell me a better way that I could have taught this. What would have worked better for you as a student? Having honest conversations, not just about lessons, but when I first started teaching, I was very rigid. I didn't really tell my students much about myself. I was there to teach, and that was it. But students want to know. They want to know more about us as educators. They want to know, like, are you, married? They want to know your age. They want to know, like, these are things I never talked about with my students. They want to know about your children. Like, have those honest conversations with them. Be vulnerable at an age appropriate level, right? Be vulnerable with your students because they need to see that we are flawed. For one, they need to see that we make mistakes, um, and they need to hear about our some of our stories, right? Because it builds relationship. It builds relationship. And not only does it build relationship, but it gives them something to aspire to, right? Oh, well, she went through this, so if she got through it, I can get through it too, right? She grew up with a single parent. She grew up with an alcoholic parent, so I can get through it too. Yes, I did share with my students that I grew up with an alcoholic mother, a functional alcoholic mother, so they know that. And so we've had these types of conversations. Um, they joke around, say, "Madam Braxton, did you get drunk this weekend? Blah blah blah." No. So you don't drink? I said, "Well, sometimes I'll have something to drink, but I'm very cautious about how much I drink because my mom was an alcoholic." So I am very candid with my students about my some parts of my personal life because I feel like if they see that I grew up with a mother who had an addiction, that they can get through it too, and that they can become what they want to become. So have those honest conversations with your students. And not only do I talk about that, but we talk about what's going on in the world. Again, I'm outside, so you might hear some traffic. Hopefully, it does not hinder you from hearing me. Um, not only do we have those kinds of conversations, but we talk about issues of racism. We talk about things that happen, recently with this whole Will Smith, Chris Rock thing. We talked about that. We talk about what's happening in the world because guess what? They are watching. They are watching. They are taking this in. They are concerned, with this whole conflict in the Ukraine between Ukraine and Russia. They're concerned, So we talk about these things. Okay, number seven, systematizing classroom management. Oh my gosh, I wish we would have talked about that in my in some of my educational courses that I had before I became a teacher, like actually putting systems in place to make everything flow easier in the classroom. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be like huge things, right? Something as simple. Okay, what I did, because I teach all boys now, so I have to get them reeled in quick because they have a lot of energy, right? So something as simple as having their do now, their drill, their whatever you call whatever they do as soon as they walk in the classroom, we call it a do now. It's simple, something as simple as having that like printed and ready to go for the whole week. Actually, mine tend to last for 2 weeks. So I give them a do now packet so that when they come in, all they gotta do is at the beginning of the week, they grab it off the table. They have a materials table. So on that table are whatever the papers they need for the day, for that lesson. They also have hand sanitizer, tissues, wipes, pencils, scissors, glue, sticks, because I have my students keeping an interactive notebook. So everything they need is over there so that they don't have to keep asking me for tissue and hand sanitizer and whatever else they, even lotion is on the table. So when I saw a student that kept coming in um, to get lotion or asking me for lotion, he kept asking. And it was one of my former students because we are on 4x4 schedule, which means I had for the first semester a group of students, and now I have a new group of students because we're in the second semester. So he kept coming in asking for lotion, right? And I had lotion, but it was in my desk. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to get a new bottle of lotion and just keep it on the table. So students that I don't even teach come in because they know I have a supply table. So, just systematize your routines. Like, circle every day, they know what we're going to do. Like, my students run circle because it's a system now. So they know exactly what to do and they do it all in French. So they know exactly how to run circle because it's a system, right? So systematize your classroom management so that way everything can run smoother. People tend to think of classroom management as just a discipline thing. No, it's not. It's everything. It's everything. It's how you give out your materials. It's how you collect work. It's how they get missed work. It's everything. Okay? I still keep folders. Even though a lot of their work is done online, every student has a folder. And because you know what? I did the folders because I can't stand when they ball up their work and throw it in the trash. Gen Z does not really do care about it. They don't care about paper, okay? But I still care about it. So I don't want them balling anything up and throwing it in the trash or the recycle bin. So everything they know goes in their folders and they know exactly where their folders are, right? So systematizing classroom management is definitely something I wish I knew before I went into teaching. Number 8, allowing students to take the lead. Okay, I am not the only expert in the room. These students are experts too. They teach me stuff all the time. They have experience to bring to the class that has value. They have knowledge that they can bring to the class that has value. So I allow them to teach. Allow them to run circle. I allow them to teach whenever students do not get something the way I teach it. Then I'm like, okay, no, go ahead, teach the whole class. I also do jigsaw with them, where jigsaw is where they learn something and they then teach the rest of the class, right? So just did a jigsaw for Haiti because I wanted them to learn about Haiti, but I didn't want to be the one up there teaching it and going through a PowerPoint. I honestly, they tend to focus more when their peers are teaching. So I said, okay, everybody's getting topics. And when you research your topic, I want you to create something and I want you to teach the rest of the class. So that's how they did it. And they did, they ran with it and they did well with it. So we are the ones in the room that have the college degree. Yes, we are. However, there's a huge hawk up there. It's huge, like it's really, really big. um, as long as it keeps going. Anyway, we're the ones in the room with the college degree, the master's degree, the doctorate degree, the reading specialist certification, certifications, right? However, they they can do it also. They can teach as well. Sometimes they can teach it to their peers better than we can because they're in the age group and they know how to communicate. They know how to get their message across, right? So let them take the lead sometimes. And the other thing is, number 9, again, is understanding that I am not the only expert in the room, right? Allowing them to teach, and then understanding that I'm not there for them, I'm there with them, right? It's more of a community mindset. And I think that I used to have the mindset of I'm here for you, and I'm the expert in the room. Sit down and listen to me. Guess what? Students actually don't want to listen all the time. They don't want to listen to us talking all the time. So, allowing them to be the expert in the room is definitely a very beneficial thing that I wish that I would have known before I started teaching. And here's number 10. Number 10. Mm, teaching is hard work. Yeah, they might have told me that in my program, but teaching is really, really hard work. Writing lesson plans, writing unit plans, contacting parents, consoling students, um, figuring out how to connect with them. Like we have there's like 5 jobs built into one job as a teacher. I have to be a data analysis, right? I have to be a psychologist, right? I gotta be uh, um, administrative assistant because I have to keep paperwork and I have to document it. I have to um, I have to make phone calls. I got to be a receptionist. I got to make phone calls. I got to email. I got to contact parents, and I got to write lesson plan. I got to do all of these things. I got to make copies. I got to plan field trips. I got to plan guest speakers coming in to speak to the students. I have to it's so many roles in the one job. And unfortunately, we're still one of the most underpaid yet highest educated profession because we have to take classes or go to trainings and do a lot of things in order to keep up our teaching certifications. So it's hard work. And then this is the other thing that I wish somebody would have told me. You're going to be thinking about teaching even when school's out. Like, you're going to be thinking about how you can make it better. You're going to be thinking about that one student and how you can reach that student. You're going to be thinking about what you could do for this unit. Your mind is going to be thinking about how to, even when school is out, right? In the summers, over the Christmas break. Even if you say, oh, I'm not taking home papers to grade, which I used to do, okay? I used to grade papers over my breaks. I used to call parents over my breaks. I used to plan units and lesson plans over all my breaks. I am much older and much wiser now. I don't do that anymore. But I haven't quite figured out how to turn off that how to. And maybe that's a good thing because it's reflective. But teaching is hard work. Hard work. So when I hear people say, um, you get the whole summer off anyway. Mm, okay. Guess what? The first 3 weeks is a time for basically it takes 3 weeks for me to actually feel like I've decompressed from the stress of the job. Okay, so about after 3 weeks, I feel like, oh, I'm actually on summer break. Okay, and then after that, I am thinking about how I can make this lesson better. How can I make this unit better? Oh, I'm gonna bring these people in to speak to my students. Oh, we're gonna do this next year. Okay, So it's hard work. And here's the bonus: no one ever told me that when we go on break, I would still be thinking about my students. No one told me that when we are on break, you're going to be thinking about how you can make your lessons better. So when we go on break, truly go on break, I have stopped taking work home as far as doing a lesson plan when I'm on break, or grading papers, or doing any of the physical tasks. But I haven't figured out quite yet how to stop my mind from thinking about work. So I do have a video on self-care. I invite you to watch that video as well. So these are the 10 things I wish I knew before I went into education. I wish I knew before I became a teacher. If you have something to add, please share in the comments. What were the one or two things or more? What are the things that you wish you knew before you became a teacher? Or if you're watching and you're not a teacher, what are the things you wish you knew before you went into your profession? Please share it in the comments. And I'm gonna link the videos that I talked about in the description, and I will also link in the description how you can get your self-care free self-care kit as well. So thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this video. I enjoyed doing this video. It's getting cold out here now. The temperature is dropping and the sun is going down. So I'm going back inside the house. But until next time, continue to level up your practice for student growth and achievement, and I'll see you in the next video.